I would like to express my personal opinion that if there were no sanctions on the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, if there were no imperialist threats to the Korean people, if the Korean homeland was not partitioned and the Korean people were not divided, then the Korean people already today would have a standard of living that would be second to none in the world.
Yeah.
There are some difficulties in the lives of the Korean people, then we know exactly who to blame. But the blame rests 100% with US imperialism and those who support it. With the Japanese imperialists, the British imperialists, and the reactionary regime in South Korea. We know that today we are celebrating the Korean people's victory against imperialism in the Fatherland Liberation War, and it was a tremendous victory for a tiny country to actually inflict a defeat on US imperialism at the time when US imperialism was so powerful in the world that it really thought that nobody could beat it. And there was terrible suffering that went into that war. There was a 6-part television series, I wish it was still available. There was a 6-part television series shown in Britain in the late 1980s called Korea: The Forgotten War. And in that programme, they interviewed a Hungarian comrade who had been a journalist from the news agency of Hungary in Korea during the war. And he recalled himself and a colleague standing in Korea, and a little girl of about 3 or 4 years old was running down the road crying. And the Hungarian person said the Korean person said that his colleague turned to him and said, "Why is that little girl crying?" And he replied, "She's Korean. Isn't that enough reason?" And that's the situation that pertained in the Korean War. I just looked before I came here at an article I wrote on Korea a few years ago, and I just wanted to read a brief extract from it. It says that General Curtis LeMay masterminded the US bombing campaign in Korea. At the end of the war, he said, "Over a period of 3 years or so, we burned down every town in North Korea and South Korea too. General MacArthur ordered the US Air Force to turn North Korea into a wasteland by destroying every installation, factory, city and village. He congratulated the Air Force when it used napalm to burn the city of Haeryeon. MacArthur declared that a large part of enemy lines is now a wilderness of scorched earth. General MacArthur also wanted to drop some 50 atomic bombs on North Korea and in northeast China." And more than 50 years later, the imperialist press themselves had to admit that atrocities against civilians were official policy during the Korean War. In an article carried in the Washington Post entitled "US Policy Was to Shoot Korean Refugees," 2 American journalists wrote as follows: "More than half a century after hostilities ended in Korea, a document from the war's chaotic early days has come to light. A letter from the US ambassador to Seoul informing the State Department that US soldiers would shoot refugees approaching their lines. The letter, dated the same day as the US Army's mass killing of refugees at Nogunri in 1950, is the strongest indication yet that such a policy existed for all US forces in Korea, and the first evidence that that policy was known to upper ranks of the US government." Because the fact that people in Korea have been telling you this for 5 decades counts for nothing. It's only when the Washington Post reports it that it becomes fact, but never mind. Anyway, it goes on. "If refugees do appear from the north of the US lines, they will receive warning shots, and if they then persist in advancing, they will be shot," wrote Ambassador John J. Muccio in his message to Assistant Secretary of State Dean Rusk. And he goes on, "The letter reported on decisions made at a high-level meeting in South Korea on 25th July 1950, the night before the US 7th Cavalry Regiment shot the refugees at Nogunri. Estimates vary on the number of dead. US soldiers' estimates range from fewer than 100 to hundreds dead. Korean survivors say about 400, mostly women and children, were killed at that village, 100 miles southeast of Seoul. Hundreds more Koreans were killed in later similar episodes." So that's just one example of the kind of atrocity that happened in Korea every day for 3 years, 1 month and 2 days of the Korean War between June the 25th, 1950 and July the 27th, 1953. I would ask all of our comrades to remember things like that the next time that anybody in the West tells you that human rights are not observed in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Yeah.
Onwards, with those remarks, I'd like to introduce a resolution which I feel should embody the spirit of this meeting, the spirit of those comrades present here, and I would ask for your support for it. The draft resolution reads as follows. This solidarity and celebration meeting organised by the Communist Party of Great Britain Marxist-Leninist extends its militant greetings to the party, government, armed forces and people of Korea on the occasion of the 57th anniversary of their 27 July great victory in the Fatherland Liberation War. US imperialism and its allies, including British imperialism, mobilised huge forces against the fledgling Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, and committed countless atrocities. The Korean people paid a terrible price for their victory. However, thanks to their heroic struggle, and with the active support of all anti-imperialist and progressive people in the world, in particular the Chinese People's Volunteers and the Soviet Union, US imperialism was fought to a standstill, the infant DPRK was preserved, and the camp of socialism and people's democracy was safeguarded. The lessons of the Korean people's heroic struggle and of their victory retain great and essential validity at a time when the struggle against imperialism, US imperialism in particular, remains the order of the day. It is in this spirit that we hold our meeting today. In standing with Korea, we stand with Palestine, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Nepal, the Philippines, Colombia, Venezuela, Bolivia, Zimbabwe, and everywhere where the anti-imperialist struggle is being waged. In the decades following victory in the war, the Korean people, under the leadership of Comrade Kim Il-sung and Comrade Kim Jong-il, have, through hard struggle on the basis of self-reliance, succeeded in building a socialist state that is capable of weathering any storm or stress. Imperialism has not in any way lessened its hostility to the Korean people or to the Korean Revolution. The country remains divided and South Korea remains occupied by US troops. Currently, the United States and its puppet regime in the South, on the pretext of the sinking of the Cheonan vessel, a tragic incident with which the DPRK has no connection, have mobilized some 20 warships, including the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS George Washington, 200 aircraft, including advanced F-22 fighters, and 8,000 military personnel for military exercises that pose a great threat, a grave threat, not only to the DPRK, but also to the People's Republic of China, PRC, and to peace and security in the whole Asia-Pacific region. This meeting strongly condemns these provocative war rehearsals and fully supports the just stands of the DPRK and the PRC against them. At the same time, it notes that US imperialism has never come off the winner in any confrontation with the forces of communism in Asia, be it in China in 1945, in Korea in 1953, or in Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia in 1975. And if it should dare provoke another war in the region, it may very well precipitate the final downfall of the blood-soaked imperialist system. Neither Korea nor China are the weak and backward countries that they were in 1950. On this occasion, we especially congratulate the Korean Armed Forces, party, government and people who, by dint of enormous sacrifice, have maintained a necessary policy of army first that has ensured that this tiny nation can face the might of US hegemony with its own independent nuclear deterrent for self-defense. In particular, 25th August this year marks the 50th anniversary of the start of Kim Jong-il's Army First or Songun revolutionary leadership, and this meeting sends him its revolutionary greetings. The defeat suffered by US imperialism in Korea shattered the myth of its invincibility and started the process of its inexorable decline, giving encouragement to revolutionary movements around the world. One such revolutionary movement, which has also fought its way to victory, is that of the heroic Cuban people. This meeting also sends its militant greetings and revolutionary solidarity to socialist Cuba on the 26th July anniversary of the start of its revolution with the attack on the Moncada barracks by revolutionary forces led by Comrade Fidel Castro. Thank you.
Thank you very much.